This is an SM Media production.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of Golf Talk right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike. It's always a pleasure to be your host, and it's always a pleasure to be talking about what's going on in the golfing world. And we're going to discuss last week's Open Championship, a wee review show, a wee treat. I'm in complete golf fever, as always am this time of year, and I thought we'd do a wee review show just to recap the great. I thought it was a great contest. The Open obviously was a pretty rounded winner, as we'll get into in a minute, but it's always a pleasure to welcome on back to the show Andy Fullen. Andy, thank you very much as always.
No, thanks for inviting me back on, Scott. And I always enjoy being on and talking about the majors and the big stories in golf. So, yeah, it's nice to get back to golf this week. The weather was a bit kind of miserable on Sunday, but true golfing conditions, as some of the Americans called it, which I thought was quite good.
Yeah, I mean, it was. We knew it was going to be a test. We did expect it. I mean, I don't know if you were like me, but I was very much in one iPad. We'll try to have the cricket on, telly had the golf, and the cricket was getting rained off, and you could see the rain just bucketing down at Hoylake. I was thinking, surely they're not going to call the golf off as well. But the golf stayed on. We did have a 4 days without any weather cancellations. I thought it was a really good event. Turned into a bit of a damp squib on the Sunday, but again, I find that more exciting. Like, we'll get into this later on, where, like, for me, I think a lot of people, and I'm still guilty of this, I'm always guilty of this, whenever you've got, particularly at an Open, like a player who takes the first 3 days really well and has a huge shot lead, you always think they're going to blow it. You always have, it's just in the back of your mind, but probably at the Open more than anybody, it very rarely happens. I remember 2010, I was at St Andrews when Louis Oosthuizen was really, really impressive the first 3 days, and everybody was saying, yeah, he's going to blow it. He's 4 shots clear. He's an unknown. Lee Westwood, Sergio Garcia might have been behind him as well, and he just was so solid. And I think that's the big thing as well. Like, yeah, Brian Harman, you maybe kind of casual fans maybe haven't heard of him, but it was so good the first 3 days, and it was very, very hard to see him not just continuing that, because he just took the course so well where a lot of big guns didn't. But I thought, again, just a classic example of the most conservative player, the best player in the links conditions, just won it.
Yeah. It was easily the best player all week, and the most deserving winner. I mean, you see the scoring kind of leveled out at, kind of 7 under, so that was the kind of level of scoring at the competition, and he's went and smashed that and won by 5 shots. So I mean, yeah, fully deserving winner. Really impressive, I thought, on Friday when he was out with Fleetwood. And I know golf isn't maybe the most hostile environment for spectators and for being intimidated, but it's still, there's a lot of home support there. Huge, Fleetwood's a very likeable guy. Everyone wants to see him do well. And wee bit of a shaky start, and then just outplayed him and just stayed steady. Kept his lead overnight, and even with Ram chasing him as well, shooting 63 on Friday, and nothing seemed to faze him. He said in his post-round interview that he didn't think about winning it until once he seen the ball in the bunker at the last, once he was comfortable with that eye. So I always find that a wee bit hard to think of, because I put myself in that situation. I'd be thinking about winning it. I already the first to be thinking about winning it.
And I thought it was interesting as well. See when he played the ball at the bunker, you just saw this kind of drop of the shoulders kind of thing, as if that's what it was, and it was such a nice bunker shot as well. But I think he did see that. Whether he really thought that, but you could see definitely a relief, because it's everybody, all of the Jon van de Velde feeling, as I keep saying.
Especially on that last hole as well. I mean, you seen like Ricky Fowler blew two out of bounds. They're some of the nightmares in the bunkers, around about that green. I know they kind of re-raked him kind of thing halfway through, but there was, it's a different skill set to come out and lead, have a commanding lead after 2 rounds and then see it through, and he's seen it through really well, he really did. So yeah, nothing but respect for him. Watching it I would have liked just to see a bit of drama. He would have liked to see either somebody run at it or him maybe being a wee bit shaky. But and I think the casual golf fan would have certainly enjoyed that to make it a little bit more exciting. But I had a conversation with someone today, and how often in history have you seen like the big 2 players go together? Head to head. We'd all love to see Rory and John Ram or Scottish. Very rarely happens, and it's the best players on that week. Might get one of the big boys up there, but no, he was. If that was Rory or Tiger or anyone else, we would be sitting here going nuts over it, because it was such an impressive performance. So hats off to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian Harman becomes the 4th left-handed golfer to win a major since 2000. I'm going to put you in the spot, Andy. Can you name me the other 3?
Phil Mickelson. That's a difficult one.
That's an easy one.
Bubba Watson.
Bubba Watson's the 2nd.
Who else is? I'm going to miss an obvious one here. Mike Weir.
Well done. I thought I was going to take a while. It shows you though. It's as well. I think we think of left-handed players as kind of being unique, but they certainly know how to win, and it's very important as well. Like I was thinking as well, like looking at the likes of Brian Harman, and just he's not maybe been one of the top American names kind of coming through. Like obviously you've always got an American crop that come through, and kind of like I think of like a Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth era. Now you've maybe got the likes of like Scheffler, you've got the likes of obviously like Cantlay, Schauffele. He's just been so solid for a long time. Like he's always been a player who you look at, if he's sitting 5 or 6 under in the first day, you're never ever surprised, just because you've never ever thought, he might be one of those that will win a major, but you've certainly never ever been surprised when he's been consistent, because he's one of those consistent players. And I think it's some achievement as well, and it shows you just that a lot of players could struggle with the links conditions, but it was just so solid. And I think that Friday, just sitting, I think it was 10 under in the Friday, and that won him the tournament. Like it was just that attacking play in the second day, and nobody else was really doing very much. Like only really Fleetwood at that point was really near him. Like none of the big guns were really doing it, and it just that keep the mindset right. Just in what I think a lot of American golfers are really good at is when they know they're in a good position, you can see them they won't attack a fairway maybe to a degree. Like maybe you'll see a lot of. I think of a Ram, for example. We'll get into Ram later on. I think he kind of just at the wrong time, just kind of his personality kind of got the grips of him. But there was never any doubt that Harman was just solid, even when he was having the kind of bogeys at the first few holes in both Saturday and Sunday. He just recovered straight away. It was never a case of he's going to blow it. You just it was then at the point of maybe at the 10th hole you thought this is over.
Yeah, that was impressive when he did make a couple of mistakes and then bounced straight back. That was impressive, and shows a good, steely mindset as well. But you're right, he is one of those players. He's like, it's only when you look back a wee bit more in depth now that he's a major champion, you think, he's a really good player. I think he said in either a podcast or an interview or somebody said he's one of the best jobs in the world because he's earning tens of millions of dollars playing golf and nobody knows who he is. He can walk through an airport and nobody knows who he is. He said so. He's got the best of both worlds. Perhaps won't have that now, but he's very, very kind of probably been an underrated player. I mean, he was world number 26. He was rated higher than Wyndham Clark, Brooks Koepka, this year, in major winners. So. It shouldn't come as a huge surprise. And his game, where some guys are maybe standing on the tee thinking, well, what do I need to, hit to avoid this bunker at like 320 off the tee or whatever. Really, for him, his mind's made up because he is one of the shorter hitters. And I think that's where Possibly, links conditions maybe does suit him, because he kind of takes that kind of short selection out a wee bit. He can just stand up there with full confidence what he's going to do. But he's also a proper ball striker. I mean, the thing is, the amount of 3, 4, 5 irons he had this week, and it was really good with them, as well. I mean, I think the shot at the last, there you go at the last, he laid up to, what was it, 194 or something like that, or 198. That's him laying up to that point. So it's really smart play, and just never looked in any doubt, really. Coming through. Straka had a couple. He could have possibly got to 9, maybe 10 if he'd birdied the last 2, but even then, it's a big ask. And he just kind of felt he was putting that well as well. It's something we've not discussed. His putting was phenomenal. So
Yeah,
he would have probably pulled a couple of putts anyway, and pulled away even further. So no, it was good to see for him, definitely.
Yeah, his putting was very, very impressive, and I think it's one of those things. To win an Open, you need to be putting, but it was just nobody was really paying attention to just how solid it was, and that was. I was so impressed, and I think he's one of the 12 that we'll maybe talk about later on for the American team. So, speaking of the big guns, obviously it's very difficult to say, the big guns didn't deliver when one of the big 3 finished tied second, and the other finished in 6 under, only a shot behind. Jon Rahm, first of all, I found he obviously had a really good round on the Saturday, and you thought if there's anyone that can catch Harman, it would be him, because he got his round in early just when the weather seemed to kind of go a bit off the rails. So, but the Sunday he just struggled a wee bit. I wouldn't say he struggled, but he just never really got going. Cameron Young was another one I really thought if he can just get into a rhythm in the Sunday, he could be one that could catch. He just kind of fell away a wee bit. Scheffler, although at times was really, really good, and you can still see why I think he's the best player in the world. Yeah. He did have a really good round on the Sunday just to kind of recover a bit, but it just never happened for the big guns. Do you think that was more the course, or do you think it was just taken out of their hands by this solid player at the top?
I think possibly a bit of both. I think certainly on Sunday the conditions didn't really ally themselves to someone coming out and blitzing the course. And I think for Rahm, how rare is it that we see someone shooting 63, then 60, another 63 or 64? So it's just so difficult to do. It's just a fact. Very rarely do you see 2 really low rounds. And I think the conditions, I mean, we've all played, or any kind of golfers played golf in horrific conditions. Now, I don't care, other than maybe Brian Harman, but I don't really care what your kind of mental state is. If you're chasing someone and the conditions are just miserable, horrendous, it's a real mental battle at the best of times. The conditions didn't really allow these guys to maybe make a proper run at it. The best score in the day was 4 under, which was Scheffler and Tom Kim. Yeah. So no one was ever going to go out to shoot 6, 7 under because of the conditions. And then you're looking at Harman really blown up, and he never looks likely to do that. He's not really get the game for that. He's almost not long enough to be really wayward. And yeah, so I think a bit of both. I think like you said, he probably won it on the Friday, to be honest. That's when he separated himself from the field, and that's where he was just too far in front. I think if the conditions had been a bit better, then yeah, you might have seen someone, better mindset and just, being able to go at it a bit more. But I was so surprised at the amount of putts that were missed. He literally seemed to be the only one who could hold putts on the greens. And links greens aren't tough. Links greens are generally pretty flat, pretty slow. They've been really slow because of the rain. Mm-hmm. But still obviously really true. But no one hold any putts other than him. Which is really, really weird to see from such a top class, field.
Yeah, one of the players I want to discuss who I think had a really good week was Jason Day, just to see him kind of getting back to that kind of level. He could be one as well, just maybe in the kind of Fowler territory. He's obviously had a major in the past, but he's one who's maybe lost his way a bit. Injuries certainly haven't been on his side, but it certainly looks as if he's probably playing the best golf he was since that kind of 2016 period when he obviously won the PGA and came very close to winning the Open. But he's another one who could be maybe kind of going back in the right direction again.
Yeah, he's just a class player. I mean, he's got a great golf swing. He's modified his swing because he's back issues, and it's really good to see him come back and play. Like Ricky Fowler, it's great to see them coming back. Good kind of personalities. Like I say, great game, great golf swing. Very kind of likeable guy. But yeah, I mean, I think he won once on the PGA Tour this year, but he's been thereabouts. A couple of kind of sniffs at the majors this year as well. I mean, he kind of finished. Obviously, he was tied second. It was almost like a distant second, but still a great week for him. Great confidence building for next year. The main thing with him, obviously, is if he can stay healthy, can stay fit. If he can, then on his days, he's as good as probably anyone. He's just like I said, he's just a class player.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into Rory. I think I might come across as harsh here, but he did have a good week. There was times where he was just really, really impressive, but we also need to look at the elephant in the room and think he is probably the best golfer we've seen since Tiger in terms of talent. 9 years without a major. It's difficult because we know he's a superb talent, but that is a drought that he should never ever be on.
No, I mean that's what nearly 40 majors, and he's not won one. It's unthinkable if you go back to, when he won his last one. If someone was to tell you that he's not going to win one for another 9-10 years, you just wouldn't. But you wouldn't get a bet on that. You wouldn't. Yeah, it's
difficult to place, isn't it? Because there always seems to be with Rory. Like I've always thought with Rory in the past few years, he comes good at the end. He always seems to struggle at the start. But in recent years, particularly in majors, I've thought he's a bit in the middle kind of thing. He's always just, when he's got into a good position, maybe St Andrews a perfect example last year, he probably should have won. But there was just something, one wee point where he just completely, no blew it, but it just completely set him back. And it's weird. I can't put my finger on it.
I know I'm the same. It's infuriating actually. Everybody wants to say he's. I mean, you ask. The bizarre thing is, you ask little kids. We've kids our kids coaching and stuff that are only 7, 8 years old, and say, "Who's your favourite golfer?" Rory. They've not seen him win a major. And it's bizarre that he's still this kind of icon, purely because of the way he swings the club, the way some of the shots he hits, some of the rounds he has. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that on his day, if everyone was on their day, he would probably be the best, because he's the most naturally talented out of everyone. But I don't know. You hear a lot of experts and stuff, rubbish this claim I'm about to say, but I just think if you had a Steve Williams or something like that on his bag, I just think literally pointing him in the right direction, just pointing him saying, hit this club over there, don't think about anything else. Maybe give him a wee G up or kick up the arse if he needs one, like you say, middle of the round, if the kind of caddy kind of senses he's maybe just waning a little bit or something's happening. Just that's the only. I know I'm only saying that because he's kind of almost tried everything else. He's not won the major with the caddy he's got, and I know it's his pal, and he's probably a phenomenal caddy. He's won loads of events. He won last week in Scotland, obviously.
Well, that was the thing. Like last week we saw just when it's very tough conditions. I mean, he's going the homegrown hero who had the whole of North Berwick behind him, and he still won. And I know it's not the same sort of atmosphere, and I know it's not the same type of tournament, but he can do it. He can win. We've seen how, and we'll go into Italy in September, where if Europe have any chance of winning, it's because he'll have to be on top of his game if Europe have any chance of winning. So he can do it in big times. It's just there's something just no clicking for him in a major.
Peaking. Look at Brooks Koepka. I mean, whatever secret he has for peaking for majors, or had certainly, that is what Rory's missing. Whether it is just time in your run, or I don't know, but I mean it is so. I mean, if you take out the 2023 Masters, he's been top. His worst finish has been 8th in the last 2 years. I mean, he missed the cut this year in Augusta, and that was a huge disappointment.
Do you think that's it as well, though? I know I'm certainly one who has that thing with him. Like, I remember watching when he won the first major at Congressional, and all I could think of after that was when he won that, the recovery from what he had the year before at Augusta, where he completely blew up. I was so impressed with him, and that was sort of where he came on my radar as, right, he could be the next guy here, because Tiger was kind of away with it at that point. And you thought for that period he won the US Open, won at Hoylake, won the PGA after that, just became the man.
Yeah,
he's still the man. That's the thing. Like, he's still the number one guy you think of, with the exception of Tiger. But you need majors, or I think he will always be remembered as he needs to win another major. And I think, is it a green jacket he needs? Is that haunting him more than anybody?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, that would obviously give him the Grand Slam, but I think, and he's the type of guy, if he did win at Augusta, next year, then he could go on to win 5, 6, 7, 8. But someone with his talent, I mean, it is a proper generational talent that it is his career. Someone with that amount of talent, they've got to be judged in majors alone. Never mind anything else. I mean, nobody talks about, I couldn't tell you how many, PGA Tour wins Jack Nicklaus had, or whatever, or Arnold Palmer or Gary Player, but I can tell you many majors they won. Yeah. And that's what it's going to be in the next 20, 30, 40 years. And he knows that. He's got to know that. But it is infuriating, the fact that he's so close but so far away, and it's obviously became a huge thing now as well. But 9 months to Augusta to do it all again. Hope he wins. It's just the way it is at the moment with him. But yeah, it's infuriating as well.
It certainly is. Yeah, just a few wee stories that I thought were really good over the week. Obviously, Matthew Jordan hitting the opening tee shot. If you're like me and sad and got up at 6:30 in the morning to watch it, you'll have enjoyed that. But yeah, he had a really good week. He's somebody who could kind of come to light in the next couple of years. I thought Tommy Fleetwood again, maybe kind of his challenge to win didn't work out well, but I still think he's kind of one who's maybe similar to Fowler and like Day and kind of players like that. They're getting back into the groove that they had in the past. Michael Stewart, what a week!
Yeah, I know.
What a brilliant week he had.
Phenomenal. I mean, to not only make the cut, but to be up there, what an experience that is. And yeah, I mean, that could be career changing for him. I mean, I've sort of fell away a little bit on Sunday, which is absolutely kind of understandable. But yeah, I mean, to kind of go to the gym and pass Rory on the way in and stuff like that. Some of the wee stories you were hearing was fantastic, and what a boost for him. And like I said, that this could be career changing for him, and hope it is. He can go on and push on from here. But that's all these guys are looking for. That one kind of magic week. Matthew Jordan, I don't know how much money he earned, but he'll probably be a couple $100,000 or something like that for a 10th place finish. So
all right, isn't it?
So that's what I mean. That's all you need. That's career, like I said, career, life changing, whatever way you want to call it. All of a sudden now he doesn't need to worry for the next however long. He can just concentrate on his golf and see where it takes him. And similar to Michael Stewart, obviously not winning that amount of money, but still it'll be a huge paycheck for him, and hopefully allow him to get to progress, and have a wee bit more freedom, to concentrate on his career and his golf.
Yeah, absolutely. One other wee thing as well. Obviously, I really like the look of Christo Lamprecht, the young amateur who's nearly. I'm 6'4" and he dwarfs me. He's about 6'9". He looks he does look a talent, doesn't he? He was just the way he won in the first round
to win the silver medal, the only amateur to make the cut. He looks a giant. He could be a giant player in the years to come. I think he could be impressive. One thing I was going to touch on, and I saw this a lot. I'm not going to mention Just Stop Oil because I would give him the satisfaction. But one wee thing was the criticism I seem to see was the criticism of the coverage from Sky. Now, I grew up in a house where every year it was in BBC and I heard the soothing tones of Peter Alice and Ken Brown, so I'm used to that. But I loved the idea of it going to Sky when the Open moved to Sky, and I don't know if you saw Radar dressed as who was he dressed as on the Saturday? He was dressed as John Lennon on the Sunday, but he was dressed as Bobby Jones, I think it was. But you need to watch this; it was brilliant. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter, but just their off coverage, like see their analysis and things like that was brilliant. Their commentary, I still love likes of Ewan Murray, Andrew Colehart, Rich Beam, even the women like Iona Stephen and Shimem, I thought were really good as well. But I did see a bit of criticism for just Michael Stewart being a good example. Like he was sitting 4 under on the Thursday, and you rarely seen a shot of him. And I can understand the coverage, but also have this thing of I love the analysis, the in depth. I'm a bit of a freak. I know for football I'm as well. Like I love the analysis of the swing analysis. They had beef on as well. They were talking about swings, and I loved that. But I can understand the criticism the coverage was getting to a degree. What's your kind of say on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing to not see the homegrown kind of players, especially a great story. I mean, look at Michael Block at the PGA. You know, they were all over that. You know, I mean, fair enough, he did get a slam dunk hole in one play with McIlroy, but even prior to that, they were all over that kind of. They love Americans love stuff like that, and to a certain extent, they'd done it with Matthew Jordan because he was, it was his club and all that. But yeah, it was disappointing, especially when he's going so well as well, Michael. You know, I mean, yeah, it's just I don't know who's in charge of looking at the coverage and stuff or deciding what players to cover. But you would think a story like that would be. You know, that would be kind of, you know, the top of the list for covering, you know. I love all the kind of off-course stuff. I loved what they done with the big amateur on the range with the earpiece, and Simon Holmes was basically...
Yeah, that was good, yeah.
Not a huge fan of Simon Holmes, but he was good at, you know, just describing, get him to hit shots and then describing how to do it. I thought that was brilliant, and you had the distances on the screen as well. That was really good. And I'm like you. I think in general, their coverage is really good. You would think they would be dying to cover, you know, as many players as they want. I mean, the coverage is on for about 10 hours, you know. But yeah, I suppose they just kind of look at the bigger players. But it is a nice storyline to try and cover, you know, when the home players do well.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was one of the very few criticisms I had. I thought it was a thoroughly enjoyable weekend. Loved every second of it. And the next time we will be on the show will be Ryder Cup at Marco Simone Golf Club in Italy. Now, thought for a wee bit of fun we would have a wee contest here. We're going to predict the 12 European and American players that will be participating in Italy in just over 2 months' time. Now, have you kind of what are you thinking here? I'm looking at this very much as I've got 6 Americans who I think are certain to go. Like I've got 6. Obviously, you've got the 6. That automatically qualifying, get 6 wild cards, but I think there's 6 right now that I can't see not being on the team. Europe, I've got 8 that I think are certain to go, but I think 4 you could kind of swap. But are you kind of with me? Like we'll go through them individually, like obviously, but you look at one team compared to the other, and there's a lot more depth on one side than there is in the other.
There is, yeah. And if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have looked at the strength and depth of the American team, and I would have thought, yeah, absolute certainties. But I think the longer it goes on, I think they do have a couple of slight issues with some of the form that their big players are in. and a few big decisions that will need to be made as well for Zach Johnson. So, whereas I think a lot of the kind of fringe European guys are playing pretty well, going a little bit under the radar. So I'm fairly hopeful. If the Ryder Cup was probably next week, I think I'd be pretty hopeful. A lot can happen in a couple of months, especially when the pressure starts to ramp up, when it really starts to count. I mean, I think quite a few players. Harman was one in his interview. He's saying, I hope this gets me on the team. I mean, if it doesn't, then I think he's a certainty. Being the Open champion, but it's definitely in players' minds, so they want to be part of it, and so that'll be interesting to see. But I'm fairly hopeful for the European side. I think we've got a good like you said. I would even go as far as say 9 for me are pretty much locked in the European team. That's what I would do.
Okay, well, do you want to do it the Neville and Carragher way? The way they do it in Monday Night Football, where they have their kind of guys they're totally agreed on, then they make cases for the other.
Okay.
Who's your 9? Right, obviously McIlroy nailed on.
Yes.
John Ram.
Yep.
Hovland.
Yep.
Tyrrell Hatton.
Yes.
Tommy Fleetwood.
Yep.
Matt Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
Justin Rose.
Yep.
And I hope we agree on the number on the 8th being Rob McIntyre.
Yep, he's one. And I've got Lowry as well.
Lowry, right? I've got him as well. So I would say there are 9 that we agree on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who's your other 3?
Sepp Straka.
Okay.
I just think he's banging form. Won a couple of times on tour. He's a kind of streaky player as well, which I think obviously you've got to get him playing well, but I think he is in good form. He's a good Open, so I think he deserves to be on the team. My next one is Adrian Meronk. I think again, world rankings wise as well, he's 46 or something. He's one of the higher ranked players for Europe. Great season. Again, he just looks like a really solid player who again is in pretty decent form. And I think we'll disagree on my 12th pick, but I've went for, if this was my team, I've went for a complete wild card. I went for Ludwig Aberg.
Oh, interesting.
I know he's only turned pro about 6 months ago, but I know he played.
He's a top talent, isn't he? Like
massive potential. And Donald played with him. I think at US Open. Was it US Open? I think he played with him and said he's going to be an absolute superstar, and he was like blown away with him. I don't know. I just think for me, looking at the other possibles I've got there are Yannick Paul, Seamus Power, Victor Perez, Harrington, and maybe even Pablo Larrazabal. I just think that if you're going to pick one of these guys, you're as well picking someone who has got massive potential. I think of kind of the way Nicholas Colsaerts played at Medina, kind of almost, definitely number 12 in the team, and he came out and he played, I think it was with Westwood in the 4 balls, and they went bonkers. He had like 9 birdies or something like that, and he wouldn't play every time, but every session. But I definitely think, why not? If you're going to play one of these other guys, I would probably rather see him in my team.
I'm very, very surprised, but I can see your angle, because I think I do really like Ludwig Aberg. I think he's a future world number 1. Like, I really think he's top talent. Like, very like Hovland. When I first saw Hovland kind of coming through as an amateur, I thought, yeah, he's going to be the real deal. And I can see that potential with Ludwig Aberg.
And he's 23. He's not a young kid as well, So, and he was a world number 1 amateur. Played in winning teams before. He's taken to the PGA Tour like a real duck to water. I mean, he missed the cut of the Scottish, but he was still 1 under par. He didn't miss it by miles. Made every other cut. So yeah, that's a bit out of left field, but that's
I can see the angle. I agree with you in Maronk and Straka. I think Maronk's been a real eye catcher the past year or so. He's been really solid in the European Tour, and I think he'll be one that will go. I think Straka, obviously, he's done his chances no harm this week, so I've got him written down as my one. You haven't mentioned the 12th man I've got. Yeah, Højgaard, yeah. That's the one. I can see the angle for most. I've even got like Thomas Detry, who I tipped up last week. I think he'll be one definitely for the future as well. I think Højgaard, though, just I can see him filling the Peters. Remember when McIlroy and Peters had that amazing week? I can't remember. I'm sure America won it. I'm sure it was 2016. But he could be the kind of one, kind of similar to that, who could just kind of shine. And I think obviously he's done his chances no harm this year, been really, really impressive. Højgaard would be my 12th, but I can see Harrington was a strange one.
Aye, just because, I don't know, he'd been mentioned a few times, and he'd said himself that to be, he'd done reasonably well in the majors this year, but to be in contention, he would need to have a good week this week, and he didn't. But I don't just. I think I was really looking at it as it's well, you say the Americans with good strength and depth. It is kind of slim pickings a wee bit for that number 12 spot, but Seamus Power, I think he's going to be a possibility as well. If you're looking at maybe, there's a lot of ingredients that go into picking a team, especially with wild cards. It's as we'll talk about probably the Americans. It's chemistry, it's partnerships, it's historical, stuff like that. So someone like Power, maybe Power and Lowry, the Irish connection, McIlroy and Power, I don't know. Maybe a case for him. He's done well in the PGA Tour as well, but yeah, I think almost whoever goes in number 12 for Europe, I think there's quite a good blend of experience and youth in that team. Whoever you pick, you've got the likes of Justin Rose, probably McIlroy's a class of a kind of veteran of the Ryder Cup now. Certainly in that team he is. Hovland, even though he is quite young, still he's a mainstay. He's a main player now. He's a big boy player. And then you've got likes of Straka, Maronk, and whoever goes in at number 12, who will be rookies, but they're good players. Proper good players. So. That's why I'm quite upbeat actually about the European chances at the moment. We'll see how like I said, the next month or two kind of pan out with the pressure kind of hits.
Yeah, I'm surprised we came to 11 that we agree on in the European team. I doubt we'll come to 11 in the American team because there is so much talent. I've left out some unbelievable names on this. Right. I think the one player we can definitely say is going Scotty Scheffler. I think he's pretty much secure.
I would think so.
He's obviously one. Like I know, obviously we spoke about him a lot, just how solid he's been and just hit like the insane numbers he's put up apart from the greens. But he obviously his first year in the Ryder Cup 2 years ago, it's going to be very interesting for him because he's going to be seen now as maybe not like 2 years ago where he was probably the 12th man, to be honest. Now he's going to be the top man.
I know. Yeah, I know. It shows you how quickly things can turn around, But again, you forget that, but he was the 12th man, but he came out and absolutely took apart Rahm in the singles, and Rahm had been brilliant that week. So that was probably the greatest Ryder Cup team ever, I don't know.
I'd agree with that.
But I mean, they were insanely strong. But yeah, it's true. I just think he's so grounded. He's got such a great attitude, personality. I don't think he had no phase on really. Even this kind of putting crisis he's kind of going through. I don't honestly don't think it'll really bother him too much. Obviously it might internally, but I don't think he'll let anybody see it, and he'll be working his tail off to try and fix it. But for me, he's the undisputed number one player in the world.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Wyndham Clark.
Yeah, he's a lock after winning the US Open. Yeah, he'll be a definite top 6.
Brian Harman.
Yeah.
Interesting one. I know he's a major winner, Brooks Koepka definitely able to go?
I think so. I think they've said that they'll pick live players. I've got him in my team.
Yeah, I've got him in mind too.
It'd be interesting though, because obviously he can't pick up any more points. I don't really know. I think it's money. They base yours on a money list.
Well, I've got the points here in front of me, and this kind of shows you just how dominant Scotty Scheffler's been. So they do it as what looks to be in thousands. Scotty Scheffler right now sitting in 25,741 points. Second place is Wyndham Clark with 13,366. Koepka's in 9,421, and he's fourth. Harman's in 10,000. So you'd imagine the major winners are probably the ones, like, obviously if you win a major it does you no harm, but we've got the FedEx Cup as well. Like, you know what I mean? It's going to be very, very intriguing, but I'd be very surprised if he's able to. Koepka's not there. I'd be very surprised.
If he's eligible, he's a pick. If he doesn't make it automatically, for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Two that I think are certainties, just because of their insane partnership that they've shown in the past, is Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think they're straight in. This is where it gets tough, because I think this is the six that go automatically. Right now, they're sitting as the six that go automatically. I'd be very surprised if any of those six aren't there. Jordan Spieth.
Yes, I would take him.
Now, are you taking him on form, or are you taking him on what he's done in a Ryder Cup? Because if you look at points wise, in the past 10 years, he must be up towards the top in what he's done for America.
I think a bit of both. I think he's shown enough. Like I said, I don't think there's many players, we'll probably discuss a few that are really setting the world on fire with their form. So I would probably say for both those reasons. I would probably say he's there on merit plus his record, and like I said before, you need, when it comes to the picks, there's maybe it's not just the form, it is like partnerships, it is experience. If you've got if your top six guys are all rookies, for example, then you're going to have to shove some experience in there as well. So there's only two rookies in there. Scheffler's played one, but yeah, I wouldn't imagine him not going.
Yeah, I think Spieth is one we certainly agree on. Where are you with Colin Morikawa? Because he's on mine. Is he on yours?
He's on mine. Yeah, I've got him as number 11. His form is a concern, and this is where I said earlier, if you're to pick the team 6 months ago, I would, you would look at this and you think the Americans are going to absolutely walk it, but they do have concerns over a few guys, and I would say Morikawa was one of them, form wise, and injuries, a couple of injuries as well, back injuries. So I think he's worth taking because he has experience in the Ryder Cup, and he's a double major winner as well fairly recently. So I think he'll make it as well. Yeah.
Right, we've got Morikawa in as the 8th one we agree on. 7th on the list in the points, Max Homa.
Yeah, I've got him.
That's 9. Oof.
I've got him. I think again, not glittering form, but good enough. I think class player as well. But yeah, he's playing good enough to be in the team, for my opinion.
Yeah. So we'll get Max Homa. Do you have Ricky Fowler?
Yes, I do.
10 out of 10.
I think he's there on form.
Yeah.
I think he's. I think I'd heard one of the podcasts, listened to that. Statistically, this season, he's strokes gained. He's somewhat like 4th in the world.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Look at it. He's had a great season. Only winning obviously the once, but he's been knocking on the door a few times. So I think he's definitely there on merit for me.
So we've got 10. 8th in the list, and he's somebody that's on my list just is Cameron Young.
Yeah, I'll get him at number 12.
Could we go 12 out of 12?
He had a good week this week, but again, he has been out of form, or he's not shown the form that he showed last year. But such an explosive player. I mean, he just hits it forever. I mean, that's the thing. If he's number 12 on my list and on my American side, and you look at the European side, who's maybe playing 10, 11, 12, and you're sticking Cam Young in at 12 in the Americans, that's where the strength and depth comes from. But again, he's not not shown a huge amount, and he's probably only there because other players are probably out of form, to be honest. But yeah, I've got him in.
Right, so we're agreeing on 11 out of the 11 so far. Now, there's a few names here that are kind of real close to getting there. Now, I'm just going to run through a few of the names before we get to who we've picked. Keegan Bradley, somebody who's really came to life in the past few months. Sam Burns, been really consistent. Justin Thomas, a major winner last year, certainly fits that angle of maybe not in the kind of form that he's been even last year. Who's your 12th man?
I went Keegan Bradley.
Ooh,
I'm not a huge Keegan Bradley fan by any stretch, but I just, again, it's more the other guys are probably out of form. Sam Burns was close to making my team, but I went on form this year and kind of resurgence to form. I went for Keegan Bradley. Justin Thomas for me is just he's so far out of form, and I think that I've seen people comparing it to when, like, say, Garcia has been picked for a couple of Ryder Cup teams when he's been well out of form, and he's been picked to play with Luke Donald, basically, or play with another. And I think you could make that argument for Thomas to play with Spieth, but I just think he's so out of form, and unless he shows something over the next couple of months, I don't know. I just think you look at his stats, and he's like 78th in the FedEx Cup list or something like that. Yeah. He's well down. He's a dreadful major season, and he's just not really showing any signs of life, to be honest. And it's a shame that I would like to see him, because I think I like him as a golfer. But if you're looking at it, it's funny because when I was doing this afternoon, I was looking at it and I was like, well, who's going to play with Spieth? And I was like, Fowler's there. Fowler will play, that's fine. He can play with Spieth.
Yeah.
Or can I try to look at a few pairings and stuff as well? But
Koepka played with him quite a bit at the last Ryder Cup. I think he played a couple of times.
Yeah. I mean, they are pretty. I think they're pretty tight, a lot of the American guys anyway. But yeah, I went for Bradley over Thomas purely on form over more than anything else. I would rather Thomas was in there, but I just think he's so far out of form.
Well, you're going to be stunned to know that I have Justin Thomas in, and it's purely for the reason of the Americans have won 2017, 2019, 2022 President's Cup, Ryder Cup, 2018, 2021, and Thomas has scored 2.5 points or over in all 5 of them. So he has that match playability. And I think Zach Johnson, because I think the big thing is, obviously, I do think Americans are strong favourites. The Americans haven't won in Europe, and am I right in saying since 1997?
I think so, yeah, that's right. And the other interesting thing with Thomas was he was the best player in France as well the last time.
That was kind of going through my head as well.
He does kind of travel well. Like I said, I just my kind of concern was if he was in there showing, and if this is the Ryder Cup next week, you then get a team with Cam Young, Morikawa, Thomas, who really aren't, and even Homa to a certain degree, who are not showing a lot, and that's why I'm a bit more upbeat about the European chances, purely based kind of on form. But yeah, I mean, you look at other guys. I mean, guys who are probably other possibles I had down were guys like Finau, Denny McCarthy, even Kurt Kitayama, who's 1 and 2, or Sam Burns. I've got good strength and depth, and that's without your guys like Dustin Johnson as well, who are obviously. I don't know if Zach Johnson. I think the only live guy I would look at would be Koepka, because he's PGA one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be overly surprised if, like, somebody like Keegan Bradley, who's kind of redeemed. I think he's quite close to Zach Johnson as well, so that could be that could be a swing as well. I just think the reason I've went for Thomas is purely because of his experience in the past. I think he's got the ability to, as you say, travel well. I'm sure he was a top point scorer in France. His partnership. Yeah, because I think when you look at Spieth and Reed had a really good partnership, and then when Thomas kind of took over from kind of Reed's position, the two of them gelled even better, and they're really close friends. Yeah. I can see Thomas just being in there for that. Now he needs to have a solid end to the season, at least just to put himself in the position. But if you were to say to me right now, I would probably lean towards Justin Thomas. And I love Sam Burns. I think Sam Burns is a terrific talent. I'd love to see it. I know Zalatoris isn't fit. I don't even think he'd be close to making it fitness-wise, but he'd be somebody I think would be perfect for a Ryder Cup situation. You've got Kitayama, who's improved. Right now, I think looking at the teams, we've agreed on 11 out of both. So I think we've got a very kind of similar idea for what both sides need, and I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, it was good. As I said, I had to review it this afternoon, but I just think I was surprised actually at how the European team was kind of taking shape as I was kind of looking at it, and that kind of pleasantly surprised really, because I was the same. I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, you've got maybe 6 definites, then it's like, oh well, maybe not 7. Well, you can't leave. Justin Rose will be there. So all of a sudden you're up to 10, straight away. So yeah, I was quite pleasantly surprised. Hopefully they all stay kind of fit and healthy as well. But I just look at the American team and they just putt better. They just look at the putters. It's just whereas you look at Rory v Scheffler would be a good match. For putt, they should just go on the putting green and putt. That'd be good. Probably go to the 18th anyway, because both of them don't really hold any putts. But yeah, I just think the Americans are better on the greens. But who knows? I'm certainly more positive now than I was, 6 months ago looking at it.
Yeah. You could have I was just looking there. I was looking to see if there's any Italians close. Obviously, the Molinaris would be. Guido Migliozzi is probably the closest. He's sitting 28th. I doubt he'll get, unless he has a stormy end to the season. I don't see any Italian representation, which is quite sad because I remember was it Debuisson that was at France? He was
that's right.
So you had the kind of the French feeling, but I don't see any Italians making it. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that, and it's now the Ryder Cup to look forward to. We've obviously got the FedEx Cup as well to look forward to over the next few weeks, but Women's Open as well, which is going to be really good as well. That could be something to look forward to. Senior next week. There's a lot to look forward to in the golfing world. Just because the majors are over, it doesn't mean it's over. But we will be back. Our next episode will be for the Ryder Cup, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And all that remains for me to do now is to thank our guest as always. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the show, Andy Fullen. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Really enjoyed it. Like you said, it was good to have a real look at the Ryder Cup. So it's just such a brilliant event. I mean, it's one. It's the one event I think even the non-golf fan would sit and watch. Just because of the drama and the theatre of it. So yeah, can't wait for that. And thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much to everyone that's tuned in, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers.